Hi guys, it's Clary Berry here, and I'm very excited to talk to you guys today about wheat belly. I've been researching this for a while. I've sort of had my stances on it for a while as well, and I'm just having people talk to me. One person in particular keeps giving me, actually a print off from the book, and I'm like, first of all, why are we talking about this? Because I rarely eat wheat anyway. I mean, I maybe eat it once a week nowadays. You can see my wheat belly, but I'm not afraid of it. I drink wheat beer sometimes, and I will definitely, have pizza or whatever else, as long as it doesn't have, the animal products on it, obviously. So that's kind of one of the first things that bothers me about this is that, you know, he, this guy, William Davis, he is actually quoted on saying that wheat is the most destructive food. And let me just be clear here. He's not talking about all just wheat. He's talking about starches in general. He talks about corn, talks about potatoes, talks about, a lot of different stuff and demonizes them all. So just wanted to get that clear. He says it's the most destructive food. Now, when I hear that, this is kind of why I haven't ever really wanted to pick up this book in the first place. Like, yeah, I know it's not the most healthy thing in the world, but it's definitely not the worst. And for somebody to sit here and advocate eating of animals and animal products while demonizing wheat, I can't get behind that at all. Just flat off, just start off right off the bat. Not going to happen. And, I always have been looking for like a diet guru who is going to really encompass everything that I believe. And that includes like avoiding GMOs, eating organic, blah, 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 blah. And, when I got to Engine 2, when I found Engine 2 and they were saying vegan, plant-based, low fat, I was like, this is great. This is fabulous. This is because I was already a vegetarian, and that kind of helped me go towards the vegan route. And the one thing that I didn't like about them is that they didn't make a differentiation between the non-organic and organic. And so one of the reasons I love Freely and Durian Rider is because they encompass everything. They know everything that I know. They're not leaving anything out. They'll give it to you straight. And, for this guy to be, leaving out, if he's going to make a book about heart disease and leave out all of this other stuff, then obviously he's got to be an Atkins, Weston A price, high carb person. Now, if you go to his website and look up recipes, you will get a broken link, which I think is really funny because, and that was the next kind of topic that I'm getting into is if you go to McDougall's website and look up his article on wheat belly, the first thing he says is like, this is Atkins and a different, it's a little bit less because people are starting to wake up and be like, oh, wait a second, Atkins died of a heart attack. Maybe we shouldn't do this. So this is just a subvert way of doing it, or a covert way, I guess I should say, of, getting the same diet across. And I think it's funny. Have to ask, why is this so popular? Why does the same diet keep coming back to us in different ways? Because honestly, when you cut out the grains and all the starchy fruits and vegetables, what are you left with? You can't just live off of low starch, which are also low calorie vegetables. You just can't survive off of that. You won't have enough calories. Jared Leto, in fact, ate that diet to basically, get so skinny for, his last role in Dallas Buyers Club. You will shrink, you'll starve, you'll die. So what's there left to eat except for meat, cheese, things of that nature? Yeah, you could live off of nuts, but I mean, shoot, even that's, not enough variation. So obviously, a vegetarian couldn't even really do this diet. You got to have the starchies, you got to get the calories in. So I'm just wondering, like, why is it so popular? Why is everybody behind it? Every, health food TV show. There it is. Okay, I found it. I'm shedding. He's on Dr. Oz, he's on this and that. In fact, the book became a bestseller within a month of publication, and it stayed up there for a while. And not only this, but Grain Brain did the same thing. Okay, where's all the other ones going to the top here? I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, and you may kind of think that's out there. But honestly, I know there's a lot more people, and I've done this, and maybe I should do it specifically towards grain brain, but I've looked up, out of everything that's going on out there, paleo and this and that, and I'll look up, how many people are talking about paleo on Instagram right now? How many people are talking about veganism? Veganism is huge. It's so popular. How come all the vegan books aren't at the top? I guess Skinny Bitch was, but it just the mass. I mean, like literally, I went babysitting. There's the book. Oh, my mom's talking about this book. Oh, somebody else talking about this book. And I really don't think it's honestly because it works or it's so great. One of the reasons is people always love to have good news about their bad habits. That's nothing new. That's how Weston A. Price operates as well. But I'm just really honestly skeptical of really anybody that's on TV saying, do this, eat this, do this, because honestly, there are 6 corporations that own the entire entertainment industry, anything. So, and that makes me wonder, when I start to see these books and they're on TV and they're getting all this airtime, that's just a red flag for me. I tend to look for the ones that they're trying to shush, like Ron Paul, that's not diet related, but that's what I feel in my heart. Like the media blackout on Ron Paul confirmed, and people are waking up, people are realizing the government doesn't have their back. And so this is kind of like, they kind of have that Weston A. Price aspect of, oh, the government's wrong and don't believe anything but me and blah, blah, blah. And they are referring to a lot of the same, types of studies, the cholesterol, the saturated fat studies that are funded by the Dairy Council. Look it up. So they are, and regardless of whether he's meaning to or not, he's definitely helping out the dairy and meat industries by telling people to go off of wheat, because where else are they going to get their bulk of their calories so that they can have energy? And especially if they want to be fit, they're going to have to consume a lot of, other foods. And it's just kind of crazy. So for years, I've just thought that this whole celiac thing, this whole GMO, like the rise in celiac disease and people, saying that they're intolerant to wheat. I've long held this, assertion that it's just because of the GMOs. None of these studies differentiate if it's GMO or if it's not. And, even though GMO wheat is not grown here, we sure are consuming a lot of it. And, in 80% of processed foods, there's GMOs. In 80% of processed foods in this country, there are GMO'd. So regardless of whether it's the actual wheat that's GMO'd or, just whatever else is in those wheat products that they're consuming. I mean, face it, a lot of the wheat products that people consume, most of the wheat products that people consume in this country are processed and there's additives. So I think it's really irresponsible for people just to say, oh, there's this study done on wheat. And we're not going to say whether it was bread, rice, 100% wheat, or whether it was other things added. Did they, it's just, first of all, it's a blanket statement to say all of these grains affect you the same, but like I said, it's the processed foods in there. It's the stuff that they're adding in there that you're not reading what's in your bread and even your pasta. And it's the GMO aspect, I think, is probably what's causing these problems more than the actual wheat. And again, I agree that wheat isn't the best. 80-10-10, this book, Are We Starch Eaters? No, we're not. We're fruit eaters, Yes, there were some roots that were raw and maybe you could eat them, but God didn't make them so available for us to eat because that's not what we're supposed to be eating as our main staples. So you can see, I'm not even the person who would be doing this video, anti-wheat belly, because I don't even eat a lot of wheat. I cut it down drastically, and I make a point not to eat it. So, but still, basically, it's just such a crappy book. I haven't even read it, honestly. I've read enough. I have. Now, I'm not saying that you can't lose weight by cutting out wheat. But first of all, is that the healthiest thing just because you lose weight? Anytime you're taking out a food group, you're going to be eating less, probably. You're going to be, maybe replacing it with something else, maybe not. And a lot of times you may replace it with something better, but just because you take something out of your diet doesn't necessarily mean that it is horrible, if that makes sense. I mean, fasting in general can be supposedly really good for you, a lot of people think, but does that mean that all food's bad for you? No, obviously you need food to eat. So, I'm not saying you can't lose weight by cutting this stuff out. Like I said, you're going to be cutting out a lot of, GMO, a lot of added fillers, high fructose corn syrup. But, you're going to be eating less processed foods in general, which is just great for your body. But, yeah, and like you can lose weight on paleo too, but that doesn't mean that it's good for you. So let's see, let me focus here. So the celiac disease, like I said, it's caused probably by just this GMO and just a crappy, food. And not to mention the soil's worse than it used to be. And there's so many other things to focus on, I guess, is what I feel. And they have, that's what's created these intolerances. Now, I think it's funny because these things that I'm speaking of have only been around for 100 years or so, and you're seeing the increase. Now, grains themselves have been around for a very long time. In fact, they're saying now that people were eating grains long before 10,000 years, that they were able to find them. And also, like I said, starchy vegetables were being eaten. They can be eaten raw. They can be dug up and just eaten, a lot of them, especially in the old days. You want to talk about, the dwarf wheat and, the food's changing and it's different. All of the food was much different back then. I mean, you take your banana looked completely different way back in Paleolithic times. And wheat is no different. And, like I said, there was different tubers, that you could eat raw better. And so the idea, this popular idea that paleo, diet has put forth that says that, the ancient people didn't eat grains, it's total falsity. It's total BS. Look it up. They were not only cooking vegetables and stuff way back then, they had medicine cabinets that had all sorts of different herbs and, different things. And they were absolutely cooking grains and eating starches as well. So just to get that clear here, but you see what I mean? Like we've been eating grains for such a long time, and look at the people who eat the most grains and who have their diets based on grains. Africans, very skinny, lots of good energy, fastest runners in the world. Oh, the Asians, Chinese, they eat a lot of starches, and what do you know? They're also very skinny, live a long, long time, and overall pretty good health. Now, you look at also the, like say the China study, or just the idea that certain, parts of the world and like different countries such as China, you can very easily go in and see that, okay, at a certain point in time, everybody was really healthy, and now you have the rising of cancer and heart disease. And it's not because they're adding starches. Now, they are adding processed starches, and that has been one of the things, but they're also adding meat. They also have, and also the way that you can sort of differentiate this is you look at where the cancer rates are going up. And the cancer rates are not going up in the poorest parts of town where they eat the most starches. The cancer rates are going up in the rich areas of town where people are obviously eating more meat that the poor people can't afford. So it's one of those things. It's very common sense if you take the time to, look at it. Again, people don't want to look at it. They're like, oh, they're anti-government. Oh, they're telling me what I want to hear. Check. You can't do that, unless you want to put your health on the line. So they're not inherently bad after all. And let's see, where was I? Sorry, there's just so much information, and I couldn't wait to do this video, so I don't have it like organized in the best. For another thing is that William, I forgot his name already, so much information going through my head. William Davis, yes, he is a doctor, so people want to listen to him, and they're like, oh, well, a doctor wrote this book, so it's got to be great. Well, guess what? He's a cardiologist, okay? Not a nutritionist, not a oriental medical doctor where they actually get a lot of nutrition. From what I have researched and always heard, and from what I understand, your average medical doctor, your average MD gets about 10 hours of nutrition out of all that schooling. So I don't know why that he thought he was fit to write a book about nutrition, because just because you're a heart doctor, doesn't mean that you're, know a lot about nutrition. And obviously, like, if you go to his websites, you can find, he's got like the forums and stuff. And I found a couple of articles over this guy at Carbs Asylum. He's actually anti-carb. And this is funny because he's not the only one. Where's my other one? Is it this one? Yeah. There's no gluten, no problem, wheat belly busted. And this is from noglutennoproblem.com. So what I have here, and this is the first two, when you go to look up like debunk, wheat belly, like this is the first couple things that come through. So you have on one hand, you have this guy at No Gluten, No Problem talking, and I'll get to this stuff, all about how he's wrong. He's wrong here, he's wrong there, he's wrong there. And then you have this other guy, like I said, Carbs Asylum, and he's anti-carbs, and he's still having also issues with things that he's saying. So, and they're talking about stuff I don't even really know about. Chylomicrons is what he was wrong about. But on his forum, he won't ever go back on there and answer questions. He doesn't talk to even his own fans. And he won't correct himself when the errors have been made. So that's obviously not somebody that I want to, get behind. So, and, like I said, I'm not going to listen to anybody who's saying eat meat over wheat. I mean, that's just ridiculous. That just, So anyways, he's not even a real, nutritionist person here. Okay. So like I was saying, you take all of these other things, that are in the wheat. And I don't know about you guys, but if you go to the grocery store and look at some different, just check out some different breads, and what they contain. And a lot of times, even if it's whole wheat bread, whole wheat's not going to be the first ingredient. I thought I had some up here saved, but I guess not. Anyway, you can do that on your own. I'm not going to read them out to you, but a lot of other stuff. A lot of stuff you can't pronounce. You guys might have heard about the Subway thing. There was this big social media outcry against Subway in particular, I guess because they're supposed to be the healthy brand of fast food. And it was this stuff, and I already forgot what it's called. It starts with a B, bad substance that they put in yoga mats. You might have heard of it. Subway, like a week later after I saw the meme, they decided to take it down. So obviously if they were putting pieces of basically, the same chemicals of yoga mats in your bread, it's not very good for you. And I'm just going to go out there on a limb and say that that's not the only bad thing that they're putting in our bread. A lot of it is going to be high fructose corn syrup as well. And so, when you go to the store, get your bread, and you feel like crap afterwards, it's not necessarily going to be the bread. There's a lot of other stuff. And not only that, but when we eat our pasta, what do? We pour olive oil all over it every time. In fact, if you tell people you make like French fries or pasta without oil, they will be like, you can do that? Like, yeah, you actually don't, your pasta doesn't stick together. It doesn't. You think that it does. Oh, you got to put it in lots of oil in there. No. Okay. What do we do to our bread? We add a lot of butter, blah, 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 blah. So, or put a bunch of meat on it, It's not the GMO. It's not the wheat. About the dwarf wheat issue, okay? This is something that I learned today, and I have to tell you guys, there's this one website it was a YouTube video that I listened to, and it took me a long time. It's a long video, and it's, I'll have to find the girl's name. I can't seem to find it right this second, but I'll come across it because I have it here in my notes. But it's a YouTube video, and very, very, very informative. Jeez, where is it? I'll put it in the links if I can't, because it's good. But anyway, the dwarf wheat, from what I found out, and in the book it reads like it's modified, like it's been modified. And when you hear modified, people automatically think it's GMO'd. And just because it's been modified from the ancient wheats that we used to eat doesn't mean it's been GMO'd at all. In fact, like I said, wheat in the U.S. is not allowed to be GMO'd right now. So the modifications that are being done here are simple breeding. It's simple crossbreeding, which is natural, helpful, and it's been happening since the beginning, for a really long time. You see a strong plant and a tall plant, or you want a lower plant, and that's why they did that. And so it's not a genetically modified thing. Yes, it is a different wheat than you might have eaten 10,000 years ago, but so are the apples that you eat. You think everybody was eating these big, ripe, juicy apples back then? Do you think that your bananas, like I said, your bananas don't look the same? Almost none of our food is actually recognizable to a paleo person. It's all changed, and it's been bred, and it's all easier to grow now, and that's the same thing. It's really doesn't, I don't think it really has that big of any implications. So, and it's just simply, I can just look around me. It's just common sense. I can look around me and see that it's not true. Wheat is not the culprit here. I can watch Durian Rider and freely sit there and down more pizzas than you could even imagine. Well, granted, there's less cheese, so it's a little bit easier than average person eating a bunch of pizza. They're some of the fittest people that I've ever seen. So simply not true. I think this is really dangerous, advice, and I really do think that somewhere in there this is implicated with the Dairy Council. And I'm not saying they funded them. I'm not saying anything. Maybe I am. I don't know. So, like I said, I don't eat wheat that often, but I sure do eat wheat. I got a little belly, but a lot of that's salt, and it's also coming down regardless of eating wheat. In fact, first 2 weeks when I switched onto this diet, I was still eating wheat as well, and I lost like 5 pounds in a week or 2, and I was eating like 6, 5, and 4,000 calories that week. So the whole premise is just really crazy. I need to bring up the fiber issue. I don't. One of the things about the Atkins diet and the Weston A diet and all of that is that they're severely lacking in fiber. This is no different, even though, I don't know exactly the recipes. Like I said, I couldn't find any. But what else is there, besides starchy fruits and veggies and grains? Like, there's not a whole lot out there. So if you're going to be eating this wheat belly diet, you're going to be probably lacking in fiber quite a bit. And that, fiber is good for us. We need fiber. Fiber lowers cancer. Fiber keeps you fit. It cleans out your system. Gentle scrubbing of the intestines. We need this. And anytime you're talking about detox, you need fiber. This is why I'm always talking against juicing. Fiber, 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 fiber. Okay? Get your fiber. So, and there's no evidence. All of the, studies and everything that when they looked at the response of wheat in this book, you go back and reread it if you need to. They're using the celiac response. Not everybody reacts the same way as a celiac person. In fact, even the people who are just a little bit intolerant, if they lay off the processed wheat and start getting either a good, real, reputable bakery that freshly makes their bread, or make it at home and eating wheat, you will not have those problems, and you can actually reverse. Some people have reversed their celiac, but you can also reverse just your intolerance just by avoiding all the GMOs, the high fructose corn syrup, everything else. So that's one thing right there. You don't write a book about something and say, that's like me writing a book about, it's like somebody writing a book about meat, saying meat's so bad, and only using examples for somebody who's allergic to it. I mean, it's ridiculous. And that's not, the only thing that this guy's showing me that he's really shady. There's so many contradictions in this book. There's contradictions about fertilizer when he talks about the wheat and how it's changed. And he says that, you can't fertilize wheat, it doesn't work. And then he says that you have to fertilize it extra just within the same couple of pages. There's errors in chapter 3 when he's talking about, let me pull this out. When I was talking about him not responding to this carb stain guy, that's one thing. He's wrong about these chylomicrons, and he says, how can a cardiologist who should be intimately familiar with blood lipids, lipoproteins, make such a critical error here? And all of this is really in depth, but I'll get to the diabetes in a minute. But so basically he's saying that wheat, is affecting these chylomicrons, and that's not true. It's fat, which I find really interesting, even though this guy hasn't fully connected the dots here because he's a carbophobe. But so yeah, you can go check this out yourself if you want to learn about the chylomicrons. And then we also have here the no gluten, no problem. Again, another, person who is gluten-free and pretty much anti-wheat. But he says here, let's see, Davis's claim, and his conclusions based on the research is, okay, so this guy actually looked at the studies before he read the book. So he realized that Davis is severely contradicting himself, not only contradicting himself in the book, but also going against the studies that he's using. And I've seen people do this before because they don't really think you're going to go click on it. I did this from Weston A. Price website as well. You'll say something, you'll make your claim, you'll put the link to the article or to the journal, and then it says, if you actually read it, it actually says the opposite of what they're saying. I've seen that before, but this is just kind of crazy. He says, let's see, if you look at overweight people who are not malnourished and then remove wheat, that'll help them lose weight. He says it's very, very clear. But actually, there was Mayo Clinic / University of Iowa. The study shows 27.5 pounds of weight loss in the first 6 months of a wheat-free diet. Oh, wait, no, that's what he said that the study says. So the study, if you actually look at it, wasn't 215 obese patients. First of all, he had that number wrong. And then a lot of the patients gained weight. About half of the patients, 91 out of 250, actually gained weight. Only 25 of them lost weight. So this isn't a situation where, somebody's confused. This is obviously somebody is purposefully messing with the facts here. Okay, so then you go on and, so yeah, I guess that's on the same thing. So they weren't overweight. He was trying to say that, okay, the people who are just freshly diagnosed with celiac disease, that about 40% of those are already overweight, and then another 13% of those are obese. So he's saying about half of them are overweight or obese. And that is another flat out lie. The actual study noted that 39% of people were obese and overweight together. So he's trying to make it sound more like, 50s, a little over 50. Not quite so much, but why feel the need to lie? I mean, surely you're a cardiovascular doctor. Surely you know how to read, I would think. So again, the same study that he uses, again, chapter 3, looking at overweight people. I guess he's it's just a different study saying the same thing, I guess. 81% gained weight after 2 years, including 82% of initially overweight patients. So the overweight patients are getting even fatter on the wheat belly diet. It's flat out lies. I'm telling you, anybody can go write a book, and obviously anybody can get to the bestsellers, especially if it has to do with, eating meat and dairy, even inadvertently. So obviously it's very careless, but it's not, it's got to be purposeful. So, and then they're talking about nalonexine. So this is the substance that they're using to block the effects of gluten. And so they did this study, where they're rigging people up and seeing how much they eat based on whether the gluten's, like getting through or not, whether this nalonexine stuff is getting through or not. So he goes and claims that everybody, that 28% fewer wheat crackers, breadsticks, and pretzels. But actually, if you look at the study yourself, if you actually dig and do that research, you will see that there was actually consumed 40% more gluten-containing breadsticks. Okay? So he says there's many others. I haven't read it, but I've, checked these, and this is true from what I can tell. Like I said, I can't check every single claim on the book because I don't have the book, but I can get to some of the references. So it's just so simplified, and even these gluten people are saying it's not helping their cause. It's not helping their movement. It does an injustice to the very legitimate case against wheat and gluten. See, he's not even for gluten and wheat, kind of like me. Like, I'm not even that for it, but I'm just so against what they're saying. So let's talk about gluten-free for a moment, because I think it's really funny, and this is another one that I had to ask, my father-in-law equivalent, my ex's dad, my kid's grandpa, he's always asking me about protein, and I had to shut him up one day. It's like, seriously, do you even know how much protein you're supposed to have? Like, do you not? And so with this, I had to say, do you even know what's in your gluten-free products? I mean, he's so conscious about his weight, and he's going to choose a gluten-free over a wheat, which I think is really funny now that I know that wheat can't even be made GMO in this country, can't be grown GMO in this country. But why would you take a natural product and then, a lot of times you're paying more for gluten-free, and who knows what's in it? Who knows? You don't know. You're not, maybe a lot of you guys are. I'm not saying nobody, reads the labels, but he couldn't tell me what they do to anything to make it gluten-free. Now, I have done a little research, and I can tell you what they do. They take rice, white rice, I may add, and they use that as their starch base, or tapioca, or potatoes. Let me tell you, potatoes are on the dirty dozen for GMOs, okay? Wheat, again, not so much. You can't even grow GMO wheat in this country. So it's a little bit concerning to me that people are just, oh yeah, let's just not eat wheat, and we'll eat some random other stuff that we have no idea what it is. Or it's worse. I don't know about you, but I'd rather take some non-GMO wheat with the gluten rather than some GMO potatoes or some, pesticide-laden potatoes. So there's no evidence that this gluten-free is going to help anybody else except for celiacs. So it's just a bunch of hootenanny. Also, on his blog, he claims this is so false. I looked this up the other day, way before I even knew I was going to do a video or anything, but it's widely claimed out there that even one piece of whole wheat bread raises your blood sugar more than a Snickers bar. This is complete BS. Didn't want to go there. Yeah, no, it's complete bullcrap. Oh yeah, I can cuss. I'm like, oh, don't want to cuss, whatever. So it's not true. Maybe two pieces of whole wheat bread, maybe. But here's the thing. The tests that they're doing are not on good bread. It's not on wheat as what it should be. And no, you don't have to travel back 10,000 years to get the good wheat. You really don't. It's not that big of a deal. The dwarf wheat is fine. Current wheat in its current state is fine as long as you make it fresh. You don't add a bunch of stuff to it. You don't process it and take everything good out of it. And yeah, if you have your own bread, I think the glycemic index for a regular piece of bread, whether it's whole wheat or just white bread, is about 70. 71 is the GI. So, but if you look at good bread, if you look at wheat bread that's made, at home or something like that, that bread is going to be more like 50s to 30s on your glycemic index, okay? Now, let me just talk about that for a minute, because, that's a relatively, high GI. Actually, 71 is pretty high, even for starches, However, that's about the highest starch that I can even find is going to be a piece of whole wheat bread. But the whole wheat bread, like I said, if you make it at home, if you have a reputable bakery that you can find real whole wheat bread, you actually, like I said, 58 to 30s. So that's going to bring, that GI, that's not going to bring your blood sugar nearly as high. Let me just also talk about glycemic load versus glycemic index. Glycemic load is something that a lot of people have never heard about. So it's a better indicator when you look at both of them and like the ratio rather than just the GI, the glycemic index. The glycemic index is ranking how quickly they break down during digestion. And so then how quickly the sugars are entering the bloodstream. Okay, so the glycemic load used in conjunction, and I'm getting this from 80-10-10, it measures the carbohydrate quality, or excuse me, it's just more accurate. When it's used together, it's a more accurate predictor of, you know, how high the food is going to raise the blood glucose. Okay, it's much better because it doesn't just look at the quantity, but it looks at the carbohydrate quality as well. So this is something that's obviously lacking in, you know, when people are looking at GI. So the GI, okay, so the GI of whole wheat bread is 71. Okay, you look at bran cereal, 64, spaghetti, 42, white rice, 64, baked potatoes, 85, sweet potatoes, 61. Okay, so just, it's from 40s to 70s, basically. So GI is very high on these, obviously. Everybody knows that. But if you go and you look at the glycemic load, bran cereal, 8. Okay, corn, 9. Whole wheat bread, 9. Wild rice, glycemic load, interestingly, is 18. Spaghetti is going to be 20. Rice, 23. Baked potatoes, 26 and 27. So the glycemic load is, you know, a little bit different, a little bit more important. So look that up and do some research on that instead of just looking at this, oh, the 71 number, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really mean a whole lot because you have to look at the whole big picture. So let's see. What else do I have for you? So yeah, they're using the exact same types of reasoning and everything as like Weston A. Price does. They're trying to say these correlations, which is another, you know, huge contradiction. Or actually, it's just a falsity, really, in his book. He goes back, and everybody knows that causation and correlation are not the same. But he wants to go back and say, oh, well, you know, since we started eating, you know, this here, and he says that, you know, because we started eating bread, you know, here, then obesity's been going up. But from the dates that he uses, a lot of other things have gone up as well. In fact, he says that carbohydrate, you know, intake has gone up with the obesity rate, which is really funny because, like I said, the Weston A. Price people did the same thing. They'll straight up lie. And that's what they did here. That is exactly what they did. Weston A. Price people say, oh, you know, well, I forget how they lied. They said that actually meat and dairy has gone down, but it's gone up along with the obesity rate. And so this guy is trying to say that carbs are going up with the cancer. And first of all, it's a correlation. It's not a causation. Second of all, like I said, a lot of other things have gone up. And you know what has actually gone up? Instead of carbohydrates, which have actually gone down, yes, you guessed it, meat and dairy has actually gone up, correlating with. So if you're going to use the same reasoning and just do it correctly, then you can see that you shouldn't be eating any meat or dairy. So again, just like Weston A. Price, straight up liars. So, you know, I suggest you, if you like bread, if you want to eat bread, find a way to find some real good whole bread, you know, that hasn't been processed, that's freshly made, no additives, or learn how to make it yourself. And that's one thing, too, that this lady on the YouTube video brought up is that, you know, a lot could happen to our food system. And a lot of people are prepping and, you know, it's silly not to include wheat in your prepping because it is such a long-lasting food. You can store it at room temperature. You don't need, you know, special anything. Just store it. And, you know, that's why grain has been so important to us in our history. And I forgot what I was going to say. So, it's important, I think, that we do maybe have that in our storage, in our long-term food storage. Okay, so I talked about fiber, I talked about, and, I just kind of clarify a little bit more about my relationship with wheat. Like I said, I don't eat it all the time. I don't even eat it every week. I eat like corn pasta nowadays and different things. And my tortillas are corn as well. So I don't eat a whole lot of it. And I try to stay away from really everything else that has it. I mean, I'm raw vegan, so I eat a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruit, and some other things. But I eat a lot of starches. But I don't eat a lot of wheat. But when I do, it's as a backup plan. Fruit is first. Fruit is number one. Fruit is queen. And so it's just not that big a deal. And another thing I want to bring up. I think I was getting to this when I was talking about the lady in the. Where is that? It must have been on another one. The lady who did the video, which I'll put the link to, is a very religious, some of you might have to get over the religious context, but I do, if you think back to Jesus' times and, what they were doing, and you take like Ezekiel bread, for instance, I mean, they got that recipe straight from the Bible because it's talking about taking barley and flax and wheat and all this stuff and putting it into a pot and then you'll have bread. So there's a lot of references to bread and wheat in the Bible. At one point, I think in Deuteronomy, God says, don't take a meal. Like if you have a debt for somebody, don't take their meal because they'll die. And, Jesus is the bread of life. And it's obvious that grain was a staple, for a long time, but also that it's in the Bible so much is really interesting. And she talks about I found it kind of interesting because she was saying exactly what I was saying on a more I consider myself Christian, but she's more Christian, I would say, than more average Christian, I would say, very adamant. And she was talking about this is sounds like an evil conspiracy. I feel like this is an evil conspiracy. It's like, wow, this chick may be right. It's just it's so crazy. So if you're going to talk bad about wheat and you're going to also bash meat and dairy, then I'll listen to you all day. And I might even, let that affect me. But I'm not going to listen to, a cardiologist who has 10 hours of nutrition, study, and who also, oh my gosh, I can't believe I left this part out. He may not be obese, but he is surely overweight. And I'm not just talking about before pictures. You can see videos of him at discussions. He's still thick. He really didn't lose that much weight in the first place. He's got a double chin, and not only that, but he's got man boobs. Okay, look it up. I have the pictures. Maybe I'll slide them in here. But yeah, man boobs. That comes from the hormones that are in the meat and the dairy that they're eating. And this is not a healthy thing. It's not just a cosmetic issue. It's not good for you. Any extra flab, the extra fat around the waist, that my high carb vegans don't tend to ever have. Long term, I should say. No long term fat vegans, high carb vegans anyway. So, yeah, I don't know why, first of all, people want to take advice from a doctor who hasn't had much nutrition information, knowledge and studies. And not only that, but he's fat. It baffles my mind. I think most people probably pick up the book, they don't look at it, and probably, he looks decent in the book, even though you can tell, because I've seen the one that's on there, you can tell, he's a pretty big guy, and some people, oh, he's just a big guy, but no, go look, find the picture, find the bigger pictures. And so, obviously, I'm not, I don't have anything personal against this guy, but I don't like what he's saying. I don't like the tactics that he's using. And, there's so many other things. This is my main point. Like I said, talk bad about wheat all you want. If you're a vegan, I'm not going to stop you. A lot of people on my forums, my 30 Bad forums, I couldn't even find anything debunking wheat belly on there because they had they're just so anti anything cooked at all, and that includes vegetables. So, you know, I'm not going to say wheat's the best food, but as a backup plan, once a week, couple times a month, I take that over meat any day. Any day. And I will also let you know, for those of you who don't know me, you know, when I went, I gained a little bit of back, which should be a temporary little gain, or, yeah, just off of me eating so many calories of fruit. That's a whole nother issue. But I have, when I took out meat out of my diet and was still eating wheat and everything, like I wasn't mostly raw. I wasn't even a vegan. When I took the meat out of my diet, I lost 10 pounds or so. And then when I took the cheese and everything else out, it was about 5 more. It was about 15, 20 pounds that I lost. So wheat belly it up. Eat your wheat. No, just kidding. Eat your fruit. And then if you run out of fruit or you need something savory and you don't have anything else, don't be afraid to eat the wheat. Be afraid to eat the meat, because, you know, the cruelty issue, the factory farming, the non-organics, the list goes on. And not only that, what is it? Heterocyclic amines and endotoxins. That's another one for you meat lovers to look up. Brand new things that we've never even talked about. So look those up. I will do the same. Leave me questions, comments. Again, if you've lost weight on wheat, on wheat belly diet, I'm not going to be that surprised. Just like I'm not saying, you know, I know that people lose weight on paleo too. So I think I pretty much said everything I wanted to say. So again, you know, don't eat wheat every day, but don't go on the wheat belly diet. Go on a high carb, vegan diet. Long run, you'll lose weight. You'll feel amazing. I actually got under-carbed just these past couple of days, and I have been a cranky mess. Maybe you can tell. I don't know. I'm going to go eat some carbs right now because I need some. And, you know, the powers that be in this world do not want us to be happy and healthy. I will just leave it at that. So be careful of what you see on TV, even if you think that it is groundbreaking nutritional advice, because let me tell you, the powers that be are catching on. They know that people are looking for healthier things. That's why they're coming up with things like this, to do whatever they can. And in fact, if you go and look, again, go to the meat and dairy industries pages, and you can find the old, you know, like, I don't think it was a press release, but their meetings and papers on their meetings about how can we make meat more healthy? Because we know that people are getting more healthy. It's a trend. It's been a trend. People are getting healthier and healthier. They're more into it. How can we get them to keep eating meat? This is how. Wheat belly, Weston A prize, grain brain, etc., 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 etc. So, yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.